Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 1920. Be prepared to be inspired.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. Today I'm in beautiful San Francisco, California, with a very special guest by the name of Douglas Gorney. Hey, Doug, welcome to Cars Yeah. Do you have it in gear, and are you ready to release the clutch?
I am ready to release the clutch. Thanks so much for having me, Mark. It's great to be here.
You're welcome. We're going to have some fun. Now, before I give you a proper introduction and we talk about your career, your beautiful artwork, your passion for cars, what's one little thing that most people may not know about you, Doug?
Well, we were just talking about a friend of yours who went on and became an actor. I too had a little sideline as an actor at one point, and my biggest starring role was in a commercial for Sears Point Raceway, where I played a Hare Krishna. This is a very high concept commercial by this weird San Francisco ad agency.
Yeah.
It featured a Hare Krishna. There was a Scottish bagpiper and a Mexican luchador, and they were the stars of the commercial. So that's my big claim to fame.
I'm trying to understand how on earth those characters relate, because I've raced what was called the old Sears Point, wonderful track.
Right, in Infineon or whatever it's called now.
Yeah,
Sonoma.
It's a great track, but I'm trying to figure out, okay, is that still somewhere on YouTube?
I don't know. I should try to find it. It was funny, but as you can imagine, bizarre.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, coming from San Francisco, where, there's a little bit bizarre in San Francisco, right? It's a bit eclectic, a bit unique, and so forth. What comes to mind is a great shot of Haight-Ashbury back in the day of a rock star walking down the street, a bunch of hippies, as they called them back in the day, and one of them was a Hare Krishna walking down the street. Yeah, I can kind of see that. Okay. Well, I'll have to dig that up. If you find that, let me know.
Okay. I sure will.
I'll put it on your show notes page. Douglas Gorney is an artist living in San Francisco. While his youthful dreams of becoming a car designer may not have come true, Doug eventually got a start in art school. And then after 30 years of teaching meditation, ghostwriting, and directing a marketing and branding for a series of tech startups and being a Hare Krishna on a commercial, he got more serious about his passion for creating art. Doug works primarily in watercolor and ink. He captures San Francisco architecture, street scenes, and particularly its re-emerging car culture. We'll learn more about Doug and the fun he's having there with his work and his art. But first, a word from our valued sponsors. So give them a little love, and we'll be right back. We are in San Francisco, the summer of love. Okay, kind of makes sense. We'll be right back. My friends at Covercraft offer you 10 different options. That's right, 10 for your vehicle's protection. You can choose from Weather Shield HP, HD, Sunbrella, Ultratect, Reflect, Form Fit, Custom View Shield, and their newest 5-layer all-climate cover, 3-layer moderate climate cover, and a 5-layer indoor option. You have all sorts of ways to protect your car. All of these are custom tailored by Covercraft's talented craftspeople. It's the form and fit with the quality to attention to detail that's been their standard since 1965. Surface protection is the best way to preserve the investment you've made in your vehicles. It's what I do. Covercraft protects cars, trucks, motorcycles, RVs, trailers, and watercraft too. I have a Covercraft cover for every one of my vehicles, and I've got a deal for you. If you use the code YEAH21, YEAH21 at covercraft.com, they'll give you 10% off your order, plus you get free shipping. That's right, 10% off and free shipping. Just use the code YEAH21 at checkout. Covercraft, protecting the things that move you. I was talking with a buddy of mine the other day, and he asked me about American Collectors Insurance. He said, While I listen to you on Cars Yeah, you're always talking about agreed value collector car insurance. Well, I insure all my cars on my regular auto insurance policy, and I've done it for years. Why use a different company for my collector cars? I get a multi-car discount. Isn't that good enough? I suggested he call his carrier and ask how much he would get if his collector car was totaled or stolen. He called back and said, boy, that was a scary conversation. The value of my car wasn't even close to what it's really worth. Thank you for the education, Mark. So don't just hope for a fair claim settlement. Be certain and know exactly what you'll receive with an agreed value policy. American Collectors Insurance has been protecting enthusiasts since 1976. Give them a call today for your personal agreed value quote at 866-ACI-YEAH. That's 866-224-9324. Tell them you're a friend of Mark Green's at Cars Yeah. American Collectors Insurance, classic car insurance, designed by collectors for collectors, automotive enthusiasts just like you and me. They're the ones that insure my car. That's American Collectors Insurance. So Doug, we're back. So let's dive a little deeper into the corner. I'd love for you to kind of walk us through this journey of art, because I've had hundreds of artists on the show. I grew up in a very artistic family. My father was an architect. There was always easels in our house. He was always encouraging us to create things. I went to school, studied graphic design and advertising. So art is very special. In my home, all the walls have art from past guests who've been on the show here. My wife's a saint. She lets me put art up all over my house. So she just says, oh, another car picture. That's nice, dear. Mm-hmm. Kind of walk us through your journey, would you?
Sure. As you indicated in your overview of my career, it's been a somewhat multifaceted career, or you might say circuitous. I had worked for a series of tech startups, as you mentioned, and the last one, fintech play in the alternative financial services space, folded. I was kind of burned out on the whole marketing thing, and I had been starting to sketch again. As you mentioned, I went to art school like a million years ago, and but hadn't really even picked up a pencil in like 30 years. Then my father, who was a very accomplished surgeon, he had a stroke. Unfortunately, one of the things he could still do though was art. So in order to have something to do with him, he was a pretty talented artist. So sort of an occupational therapy approach, I got a sketchbook, got a pencil, just to be able to sketch with him. And that was really a sweet thing to do in his final years. And then I was staying with him in Napa to help him and his wife out. Then moved back to San Francisco, but kept at it, kept sketching. I had moved to the Sunset District, the west side of San Francisco, and something about the whole look and feel out here really inspired me, and just started just sketching street scenes and put them up on the local Facebook group. People liked them, and I even got requests for commissions. People saying, would you sketch my house? I'll pay you. You'll pay me. Bonus. And so it kind of snowballed, and now that's my full-time gig. It's one of these cases of finding your dharma, if you will, finding what it is you were supposed to be doing, even though it took me a long time to sort of get around to it.
You know, it's a wonderful story because you went to school at the Art Institute of Chicago, correct?
That's right.
Yeah. And then University of California, Berkeley. Before that, I believe?
That's correct. I was majoring in history at UC Berkeley and sort of casting about where I liked history, but was I going to be a history professor? Going to be a lawyer? Nah, I don't know. So I took an art class on a lark. Actually, it was a sculpture class. And my sculpture teacher pulled me aside and said, you're really good at this. You should consider doing this for a living. And I was like, it's a sign. That's what I meant to do. So I went on after graduating from UC Berkeley, I went on to art school, first at California College of the Arts, and then transferred to the Art Institute of Chicago. And I was really enjoying it, but then, life will always throw you left turns. And I became really interested in meditation, which you were which you mentioned as well. I had been doing that for a number of years and decided, no, what I really want to do is I want to become a meditation teacher. So I finished at the Art Institute and then plunged deep into meditation and was doing that full time for 10 years, teaching the Transcendental Meditation program. And then I came out of that because I needed to make some money. Came out of full-time TM teaching and got into the marketing thing. It seemed like a natural fit for me. And then only recently, fairly recently, the art thing really reemerged. But I really had the fire in the belly for it this time. And it was clear that this is what I meant to be doing.
Well, life is interesting because some people go through life doing one thing their whole life. That's it. And they may enjoy it, may be great, but there's so much more. It's obviously life is like a diamond. There's many facets and there's all sorts of opportunities. And Cars Yeah, when I created this, was all around my mantra of inspiring automotive enthusiasts, people who've wrapped their passion for automobiles and somehow figured out a way to take that passion and make a living at it. When our mutual friend Gary Foster, who's been a guest on the show, introduced me to you, he said, Doug is a really cool guy and he's starting to get back into his passion for cars and doing some work on cars. So I looked at your website and I went, okay, I love architecture. My father was an architect. And I see San Francisco. It's where my wife and I honeymooned and my son lives there with his wife. And I went, okay, I see what's going on. And then I started seeing your cars and went, all right, I got to have this guy on my show. So before I ask you about your passion for cars, though, I have to ask you this. Meditation has been something that so many people who've been on my show have talked about. I have tried to figure out how to do it. And I can't get my mind to clear. Now, we could probably talk for an hour about this topic, but if you could offer me maybe one brief, I don't mean to minimize the importance of meditation because I think it could help me a lot. How do I clear my head, Doug?
Well, one of the reasons that I learned TM in the first place, and this was, I was basically a kid then. I was 13 years old, and it was something that was going to be able to help me clear my mind and also develop better focus and be a better student, which, I like to think that I've got some smarts, but they never quite translated into my report card. I was never the best student. I mean, my mind was always wandering. I was always wanting to do something else than my homework, and my focus in class would drift. When I did learn the technique, which was super simple and pleasant enough that it inspired me to keep at it, I noticed that my grades started getting better. Which sounds, this sounds kind of like just a line, but it's really true that my grades did get better, and I had a reasonably distinguished high school career. So just noticing that my grades were getting better, and also my health was improving. I was not exactly a sickly child, but I'd get cold and strep throat and tonsillitis. I got mononucleosis twice. You're only supposed to be able to get it once.
Oh gosh.
And I was always out for like weeks from school. But right away, I just started getting healthier and not getting sick anymore. The occasional seasonal flu that everyone gets. But so I figured, okay, I'm getting better grades. I'm not getting sick, and I'm not worried about stuff so much. This is something that I should keep doing. Now, that's, I know, not exactly an answer to your question, but it was something that was just so easy to do, so simple, that the whole thing was quite compelling, and that's why I've kept doing it and done it regularly for now going on over 35 years. And as far as how you clear your head, all I know is this one meditation practice. This is all I've ever done. It's very much its own thing. There's a certain instruction that you're given in Transcendental Meditation, and it's super simple. It's just a way to let your active mind quiet down and just naturally go to quieter and quieter levels of thinking until it settles down completely. And of course, one has thoughts in meditation, and then the mind will settle down again. But the practice is so natural. It's like you know how to do it already. but you do need to be given that instruction, that right start to put your mind in the direction of following its own natural tendency to go to quieter states. Mm-hmm. So my best suggestion for you, in finally answering your question, would be check out Transcendental Meditation, to go to an introductory lecture, and if you like it, learn it. It's a simple course taught in 4 sessions of about an hour and a half each over 4 days, and then there's a lifetime follow-up program just to make sure you're getting the most out of your meditation, which you can take advantage of. And it's a simple practice you do in a chair twice daily, 20 minutes, morning and evening. And I've certainly gotten my money's worth, so I recommend it. Now, that said, there are so many different kinds of meditation, and I know people who do other kinds of meditation and get a lot of benefits and a lot of enjoyment for that. So I just think it's important to be doing something, going inside a little bit. You know, we're always pulled outside in this day and age. There's so much information, mm-hmm. There's so much stimulus, but if we can have something that just lets us go inside and be quiet, it's of such great value. And this meditation is one that's really worked for me because it is so simple. It is so easy. Yeah. And it's really pleasant to do. It's like a little vacation twice a day.
What you're telling me basically is like racing. It's seat time. You have to practice. It's like learning an instrument or a craft like artwork. You have to practice at it. It doesn't just immediately come on and you're all of a sudden a master at it.
Well, I would add that, or amend that slightly, in that it's something that is so astonishingly easy and ridiculously simple. I know I've taught people and it's like, wow, it just kind of happens, doesn't it? And they're really often surprised by that, and pleasantly so, thinking that this is something that's going to require a great deal of concentration. It's going to be the Zen practice, and I really have to concentrate at it and be very disciplined with it, and then maybe I'll get some results years down the road. But right from the first meditation, you just, in the most effortless way, and it really only works because it's effortless, you just notice that the mind settles down and quite independent from any thoughts you might have about it, like, oh, this is not going to work. I could never do this. I'm not that kind of guy. That really you have the ability within you for the mind to just settle down and the physiology to quiet down. Heart rate decreases, the breath rate decreases, your blood chemistry changes, and that all happens completely naturally. Just with the instructions. So basically, right from the first meditation, you'll notice some results and some benefits, and it can be quite a dramatic contrast, even just getting that little bit of and having the ability to settle down and go within twice a day. So yeah, it doesn't take a long time for the benefits to show up or to be able to do it. It's something you can already do, and just having the instruction that people respond to it right away.
There you go. Well, the people I've talked to who practice that TM, have said very, very healthy and good for them. And it makes sense to me. So I will seek out some advice and help. It sounds like that's the first step. Let's talk about cars a little bit. Since we are cars, versus TM. Tell me a little bit about your passion for automobiles and how you've brought that back into your art.
Well, I have always been a car guy, and San Francisco was actually a great place to grow up. As a car person, or maybe it's a place that turned me into a car person, San Francisco always has had, more than I think just about any other place in the U.S., a strong imported car presence. Even back in the 60s when I grew up, you saw a lot of English cars, French cars, German cars, Italian cars, even some of the early Japanese cars, because they were small. It's a fairly compact city. Mm-hmm. It's a city where parking can be challenging. So small cars were prized. And it's also a fairly cosmopolitan city where you'd have people driving weird cars like Citroens or Lancias. And particularly the neighborhood where I grew up, Telegraph Hill and North Beach, you had a lot of bohemian people who were, I think, attracted to those kinds of cars. My dad, actually, after series of GMs. You know, he had his Pontiac and an Oldsmobile and a Chevy Camaro. Cool cars. But finally, he got his dream car. He got a 1969 Mercedes 280 SL, one of those Pagodas.
Oh, yeah.
And he loved that car. And unfortunately, in his senior years, he sold it rather than passing it on to me, which I was a little bit put off by. He said, "Son, you couldn't even afford the star in the grill."
Oh, thanks, Dad.
And he was right. At the time, I was doing some full-time kind of semi-volunteer meditation activity, and I said, "Well, yeah, you're probably right about that." But wow, that was a cool car. Anyway, just growing up in that environment, I got really interested in cars. My dad, who was also a car guy, fed that by getting me a subscription to Road and Track magazine when I was 9 years old, maybe 10. And so I was probably the youngest subscriber to Road and Track. But wow, that was a big influence too. Just every month that thing would arrive and go, oh, wow. I'd lock myself in my room and I'd catch up on what was going on at Le Mans and what was going on at Targa Florio and who won the Dutch Grand Prix, and seeing the latest exploits of Jim Clark or my hero Dan Gourney. So and whenever I could, I watched racing, and I had racing posters all over my wall. So that was a big exciting thing for me, and also the whole. I think I mentioned Road and Track because the art director of Road and Track for many years, from 1959 all the way up to the 90s, was a guy named Bill Mota, and he became after freelancing for them, he became eventually the art director and really helped to create the whole look of Road and Track and all the wonderful illustrations in the magazine.
Oh, yeah. I love his art. Yeah.
Exactly. Which were so influential to me. Just looking at these things, when you're young, everything you see and hear and smell and taste really resonates in a way that it doesn't so much when you're grown up, but it really sticks. So that whole look of cars and car culture, the whole image of cars became really resonant for me. As we've talked about, art I sort of stepped away from art for many years, but when I came back to it, mostly through architecture, as you said, I stumbled onto cars. I was going to talk about this later, but we'll hit on it now. One of the things I do, one of the ways in which I kind of give back to the community is I founded a group called the Sunset Sketchers. And every week I organize a sketching meetup for people artists and just enthusiasts who want to do urban sketching. So we meet up at different sites, mostly on the west side of San Francisco, and maybe the Golden Gate Park to sketch the Botanical Gardens or some iconic architectural area with iconic Sunset District houses. But one of the things that we've been doing is going to the SFOB Hot Rods Customs Classics meetup. And that's held once a month on the Great Highway, which is the Strip. It's basically PCH for our Southern California listeners, and it runs right along the beach here at the west side of San Francisco. So they have a wonderful collection of cars from all over Northern California. A lot of cars from the 50s, 40s, 60s, even as souped up Model A's, and they're all such iconic, eye-catching, and sketchable cars. So we go out there, we become big fans of this meet, and they become big fans of ours, of the Sunset Sketchers. And I found that that love of car and car art that I had from my childhood really came back in a big way. And so I've been sketching cars, not just there, but elsewhere on the street, and really finding an affinity for them and seemingly an ability to do them pretty well.
Yeah. And
my family has become really, really excited about that, about my car art. My sister, who's one of my big fans, says, you should really, your cars are so great. You got to do these cars as greeting cards and get them out there because people will buy them. They're fantastic. So I'm excited about that. I mean, there are only so many hours in a day, and I've got other architectural commissions to work on, but I really want to be doing more with automotive art.
Bill Mott, I had arranged for him to be a guest on my show. We lost him back in, I think it was January, February 2020.
Right.
And he was scheduled several times. He was not doing that well towards the end of his life and kept having to cancel, and then he passed. And I was so upset because I'd remembered his art from when I was a kid as well. And I went, man, I really wanted it. And I've got one of his pieces of art in my home, and I was really frustrated that I didn't get him on the show, but he left a wonderful legacy, that's for sure. He just created some great things. But I'm glad you brought cars back into your architecture and combined those two. It's an exciting combination for me, having a father who was an architect and who loved cars.
Great.
Brings back some great memories too. We'll take a short break. We come back. I want to have you talk about a big challenge you faced in either your life or career. So sit tight and we'll be right back. Here at Cars Yeah, it's all about inspiration. And our charity of choice is TechForce Foundation, where it's all about making a positive difference in young people's lives. TechForce helps young adults discover their talents and passions for all things automotive, with a mission of helping students develop a career as a professional technician. TechForce awards nearly $2 million in scholarships every year for students to pursue technical education, and they support hands-on activities, events, and mentorships across the country, working to change the outdated perceptions of these careers. Auto techs are in high demand, but the supply of qualified technicians is critically short. They need your help to fuel their mission. Learn more and join me in supporting them at techforce.org. I've discovered Linkage. It's a new quarterly publication and website that covers the automotive market, driving, restoring, collecting, and discovering your passion for motor vehicles. Linkage is about experiences, opinions, and values. Linkage is an actual informed, reasoned opinion based on first-hand experiences. A talented Linkage team covers the automotive world, the people who share your passion and mine, smart, considered, rational, and experienced opinions, ones you can learn from and grow. That includes our passion that drives auctions and the collector car market. So come with me and join us on this journey. And be sure to use the code CARSYEAH when you subscribe, and they'll give you $10 off. Boom! Linkage, geared for the automotive life. Subscribe today at linkagemag.com. So we're back. So let's talk about a big obstacle, challenge, failure. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's more important of the lesson it taught you so you can move forward in a very positive way. So take us on that journey, if you would.
Sure. Well, it's really that brings us up to the present moment. As I mentioned, I had this tech startup that I was working with very closely. A friend of mine had started it, and we just ran out of funding and had to shut it down. And so that was kind of sad. And plus I was out of work again. But I had this sketching thing that already had started back up again in my life. And I started thinking, sometimes you just have these thoughts that come up, these sort of like dangerous thoughts. That's like
dangerous thoughts. There's a title to a book.
What if you did that? I was like, no, that's not a sensible idea. Let's not have that idea. Quiet now. And but I kept thinking, what if you did art? Mm-hmm. It's like you've always really wanted to do art, but you've never actually let yourself do it. Mm. What if you did art? No. Come on, that's ridiculous. But starting to have those thoughts, starting to let that desire kind of emerge, it's like the universe kind of overheard that conversation and started throwing stuff at me. And I got these commissions, as I mentioned, which helped me to do art. And I got actually a show pretty early on at a new emerging gallery downtown. And the thing kept building until pretty soon I had to bow to the inevitable and say, okay, I guess I'm going to be an artist now. So there was a bit of a challenge, just losing the startup, and but it was also a challenge deciding to become an artist in one of the most expensive cities in the country, if not the world.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a kamikaze pivot to do that.
Kamikaze. You got some good book titles going here. Kamikaze Pivot.
The Kamikaze Pivot. That would be a good business book, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Well, I'll have to put that on my list of projects. It hasn't been easy. I've had to learn a lot on the fly because the very medium that I'm working in, watercolor, but I always I'd always been an okay draftsman, drew well enough, and dabbled in watercolor, but it had never really been a medium that I put a lot of focus on. As I mentioned, when I went to art school, I don't know if I mentioned this, but my focus was in sculpture. I was going to be a sculptor. And of course, you do a lot of drawing and some painting to aid your sculpture, how you see things. But here I was doing representational stuff in a medium that I wasn't super familiar with. So I kind of had to learn the medium on the fly. I had to learn again what it was like to make things with my hands after having been so digitally focused for a number of years, doing marketing for tech companies, just basically writing on a computer as so many of us do, to actually step away from a computer and make something with my hands. That was a challenge. And of course the finances of it were and continue to a certain extent to be challenging. And there have been months when it wasn't clear exactly where rent was going to come from. But I just decided, this is sort of this is, I think, the thing that I was meant to do, and I'm really going to try to make this work. So I've stuck with it, and the more I find that I really just focus on it, believe in it, and apply myself to the task, the more that life just puts stuff in front of me and makes it possible for me to continue, puts new opportunities in front of me. I guess the lesson that I'm learning now, this is very much so your question is very relevant to me. It's a very current situation, is just follow your passion, really follow your dream and believe in it. And that the universe will create opportunities for you to succeed.
What you focus on grows. What you think about expands. And what you dwell upon determines your destiny.
Beautifully said.
Well, Robin S. Sharma said that, actually, but I will use it from him because it works perfectly for what you just described.
Well, I guess I'd heard things like that, but I maybe it was a question of not having. I was reasonably successful as a writer, as a copywriter, but and while it was something I could do, it wasn't necessarily something that was really what was me. That wasn't a very elegant way of putting it, but it wasn't my dream. It wasn't my passion. There's part of me that is a writer, and at a certain point, I'd like to marry my writer side to my artist side. But to do something that was really more personal to me was a new thing, and so that's when I discovered the truth in those sayings of Mr. Sharma's.
Perfect for what you described. Well, it's what, again, this show's all about, people finding their passion and figuring out a way to wrap your career into it and make some money from it, of course. We need to do that. And sometimes it takes a lot of direction, focus, sometimes a lot of setbacks, but it sounds like you're on a good track. But yeah, I definitely want to see that book from you, A Kamikaze Pivot, coming to the bookshelf real soon. Let's talk about
it's going to be a graphic novel, I think.
A graphic novel. There you go. I like that even more.
Or maybe a graphic memoir.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. There's a challenge for you. I like to talk about special vehicles in my guest lives. You talked about your dad's 280 SL, the Pagoda. What a wonderful car. Is there a special vehicle other than that one in your past?
I at one point had a 1967 Dodge Coronet 440.
Okay.
Convertible.
Nice.
Midnight blue, white interior, Krager mags, a really nicely aged glass pack muffler. It only had a 318. The 440 was kind of a branding tag, but still plenty powerful. What a car. Love that car. Well, not the most practical car for San Francisco, so eventually I did have to sell it just because the upkeep and the parking and everything was just getting a bit much. But I love that car, and I drove that car from Arizona, where I bought it, to through Monument Valley and many parts of the Wild West to San Francisco, and so I there's some good times with that car, and wow, it was great stuff.
Well, the convertible is a classic, and you get into didn't they have like the RT? Wasn't that a?
Yeah, the RT. Yeah, the RT was the hot rod. The RT came stock with the 440 Magnum engine, but you could get the Hemi with it, the 14 Hemi.
Well, I can envision that with the Krager wheels and the red sidewall car, tires from the 60s, which went on to be on all the Hot Wheels, the red lines, as they call them, which are great, known on the GTOs, of course, and so forth. But yeah, that's a classic one, but tough car to maneuver around San Francisco. Kind of a big car for a convertible, but classic.
It was enormous. It's 17 feet long, head to tail, and but such fun, and a real eye catcher too.
Yeah, very cool. I'm going to be your car psychologist here today. If you were manifest as a vehicle, this should be a good answer because you're a creative guy. What would Doug be, but more importantly, why?
I've thought about that. I thought about that sometimes, and my answer may surprise you, but I think that I would be a Jensen GT. Now, the Jensen GT is a little bit of an obscure car. Yeah, I'm an obscure guy, so that's right there. We're on to something. But it's the shooting brake version of the Jensen Healey, the shooting brake station wagon. They didn't make a lot of them, but it was a pretty cool looking car. And so the reason I think that I would be that car is because stylish and maybe not that practical. It had a Lotus engine, Lotus 4, probably be in the shop a lot.
Like every day.
Maybe when you could drive it. Yeah. So it's like, but it was trying something new. It was thinking out of the box. Yeah. When it did go, it performed well. So not that I'm in the shop all the time. My health is pretty good, but just that sometimes I'm not all that practical. This whole decision to live in San Francisco and in my 50s become a full-time artist. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, it sounds like the 60s reliving itself, the 70s, the whole thing. That car, what's interesting about that car to me is it reminds me a lot of the BMW Z3 or Z3, which they called the clown shoe car.
Yes.
It has that look, but it's more stretched out. I think BMW maybe did a little better job from the design standpoint.
As BMW would.
Yeah, well, it's German, so, everything's spit spot there. But I had a friend in high school her father was a doctor, had a lot of money, and so he bought them cars. She got the first 320 BMW when it came out, but her sister got a Jensen Interceptor. Yeah. And worst car on the planet Earth. I mean, it never ran. It was constantly, she loved it, but it was every other week. It was broken. She finally had to give up on it. But I've not thought about the GT in a long time. Yeah, that car.
Yeah, I was coming out of left field. You weren't expecting the Jensen GT.
I was expecting something creative from you, Doug, but not that. No, not that.
At least the Jensen Interceptor had a Chrysler V8.
Yeah, and a little better.
And a Torque Flight, married to a Torque Flight, Chrysler transmission.
Your cars,
so basically, it was a gussied up Mopar.
Yep.
But of course, maybe British cars, we love them, but so that did put it in the shop a bit. But at least it had that. With the Jensen Healey, and then hence the GT, you did have the Lotus inline 4. That probably was not the best way for them to go, although a cool way for them to go. So anyway, I'm seeing is, I'm a little unusual. I'm definitely, I'm a little bit of a vintage model at this point. Not exactly, 40s vintage, but a little bit older. And, some thoughts of being practical, but definitely out of the box.
Yeah, well.
And fun.
Nice answer to that question. I like that. Brought up a memory that I hadn't thought of in a while. So I think that's cool. Has there been a great book you've read in the last year or two that you'd like to share with our listeners that you really enjoyed?
Oh, yeah. 2 books come to mind. One, and I got to say 2 because one of them is car related and also out of print. And the other one is not, but it's a book I think everyone should read. So the car-related book is called Sex, Drink, and Fast Cars. It's by the British design critic Stephen Bailey. wonderful writer, very witty and kind of snarky in the best British tradition, but really a really, really interesting dive into the aesthetics of cars and why people like cars and what people look for in cars and how that shapes car design and car marketing. And then the book that I read fairly recently that I just really took me by surprise. It shouldn't have, of course, because it's one of the great books in the world, is War and Peace, which is one of those books I always felt like, well, I guess I got to read that sometime. But it's so long.
I know. It's tough to get through.
There's a new translation, probably the newest translation, by Richard Pervere and Larissa Volkonsky. I'm just reading it off the cover right now, which is really accessible and really fresh, makes it seem like particularly Tolstoy's brilliance about the human condition and about psychology. It just seems like something, obviously you got the Napoleonic Wars, so it's not a contemporary setting, but the people are people that you can really relate to. All the interactions and the thinking and the way people relate and the way they see the world is something that is very fresh, very contemporary to me. And it's, wow, what a book. I mean, this guy just seems to pull together everything from the most cosmic, metaphysical insights to the most keen insights about how people are like in their smallest cells when they gossip and are and catty to each other. And it's a sweeping story. It's an exciting story. It's wonderful. I thought even at 1,400 pages, there wasn't a word wasted.
Nice. Tolstoy. Yeah, iconic. Let's go on the ultimate drive here before I let you leave. That means you get to pick any vehicle in the world to be in, any person to be with, living or deceased, and anywhere to be driving. What does your ultimate drive look like, Doug?
Okay, so as far as my road buddies, I thought a bit about Bill Motta because what stories he would have to tell about that whole world of road and track. I also thought about Fitz and Van, Art Fitzpatrick and Van Kaufman, who, of course, were the geniuses behind the Pontiac ad campaigns of the 60s and 70s. They really did a lot. Their art did so much to also shape my car fantasies and my vision of what cool art was. But I ultimately decided on Dan Gourney because he, as an American racer having success on the European circuit as a kid, he was just, plus his name was like mine. I thought that he was just the coolest thing. In fact, I had this big poster of his 1967 Eagle Westlake on my wall, and it just said Dan Gourney on the bottom, and I took some white out and I changed his name to Gorney. In fact, I used to tell people that he was my cousin. But wow, what stories he would have about winning Mons, Indy, and winning in Formula One. I would want to ask him, what was it like when you almost, what was it like winning the Belgian Grand Prix in '67? What was it like when you almost then won the German Grand Prix at Nürburgring, but your car conked out on like the last second to last lap? And what was that like for you? And I want to ask him all about the innovations he had, such as the Gourney flap and all the ways in which he shaped racing as we know it today. And he seemed like a really amazing guy. So I think he would be a great person. Of course, I would let him drive, and we'd be driving one of my favorite cars in the whole world, which would be a 1965 Pontiac Gto.
A goat.
Got to be the convertible. Actually, if it's a hard top, that's okay. Those look cool too. But what a sharp looking car. And I think, the drive you have to take, everyone has to take, if you haven't done it, you should take it, is the drive down Highway 1 from San Francisco to LA, particularly passing through like Carmel and Big Sur. So how can you pick anything else? It's got to be that.
You picked two people here that I did not get on the show that had been scheduled, Bill Motta, and then also Dan. The last year of his life, I had him scheduled many times, had to cancel. He was not doing well and just wasn't up for it. And then we lost him. And I was so disappointed because I so wanted to talk to him. I met him several times at vintage events. When I was racing, he was always the kindest person. I've got a couple of his books that he signed for me, which was quite special for me, but that would be a pretty darn special ride for sure. Yeah, wonderful. You've taken us on a great ride today, my friend. I'd love for you to leave us with a parting word of wisdom, advice, a mantra, a success quote.
Well, I got, it has been a great conversation, and it's allowed me to talk about a lot of things that not just anyone in my family or my circle of friends is interested in, but is clearly my passion. I would say that I guess the lesson that I'm learning, if I have any wisdom to impart, it's this, that, life is short, so try stuff. If you have a dream, you may surprise yourself with the way you can make things work. That's what I've learned. So just don't be afraid to try your dreams on for size and see how they work out. Great advice, most definitely. Best way for people to find you, is that your website? 2 ways. My website is Gourney.studio. It's not .com, it's .studio. Yep. Gorney.studio. And then also Instagram is a good portfolio of my art. And that's my Instagram handle is Outer Avenues Art. If I may, just wanted to give a shout out to Tony Ulloa, who's the organizer of the SFOB Hot Rods Customs Classics meet. If you are anywhere in the San Francisco Bay Area, you got to come check this thing out. It is so wonderful. I mean, the Ocean Beach in the morning with just amazing cars appearing out of the mist and lining up. It's a great experience, and he does such a great job organizing it. And they're big fans now of the Sunset Sketchers, so it's kind of a love fest there. But check out his Instagram too. As long as you're checking out my Instagram, check out his Instagram, which is SFOB Hot Rods. They do wonderful social media. These short little videos with like cool kind of rockabilly music and all these amazing cars passing by. Maybe you can introduce me to Tony. We can get him on the show. How does that sound? I would love to do that. I think he would be a great guest. Yeah, absolutely. I'll send my son, who lives up there on the hill just by you, down to one of those events. I think he'll have some fun attending that show. And next time I'm down there, I will definitely join him. It sounds like fun. Again, a big shout out to Gary Foster for introducing me to Douglas. Thank you, Gary. Gary is a great guy. Yeah, he's introduced me to some wonderful people. Douglas, or Doug as your friends call you, thank you for being so generous today with your time and sharing your life with us. What fun you are having. Until you and I talk again, I'll see you down the road. Thanks so much, Mark. You're welcome.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.